It goes without saying that Gene Wilder's performance in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is one for the freaking ages, man. Who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love that man? Who doesn't love that take on the character? In fact, it's so beloved that people just kind of forget that it's kind of, it kind of deviates a lot from the original product. Fast forward a few decades and we got Tim Burton's take on it, or should I say Johnny Depp's portrayal of Willy Wonka that derailed Tim Burton's take on it, because Tim Burton's movie is actually a lot more loyal to the source material than the Gene Wilder version. But that Depp performance, woo, man, it's definitely something you got to get used to. It's definitely not very likable. It's a little too weird. And given that Depp was at the height of his prowess at this time, that says a lot that people were kind of like turned off by his performance. That being said, I do have some respect for that version. I actually enjoy it, even though it is hella weird and kind of like not a comfortable watch with other people. But yeah, I mean, it just proved that the previous version was damn near untouchable. So when they announced that Paul King, most famously known for the Paddington movies, which are fucking perfect, that he was going to take on Wonka, I don't think there wasn't a lot of people rooting for another Wonka take, But there still was that element. Paul King, though, he's good. He's damn good. The casting came along. Timothy Chalamet as Wonka. I don't have a lot of Chalamet experience, so it wasn't like I was like, hell yeah, now I'm in. I was just kind of like, we'll see where it goes. But I'm not going to lie, there was a little seed of anticipation in me because of Paul King, man. The Paul King factor was strong, baby. And I had to see what the results were. I'll be honest, I didn't pay attention to how it did in the box office, the reactions, none of that. I just was like, I'm going to wait till the right moment comes for me to see it. And the right moment happened to be just last night, just a private moment to myself to take it in. Also, Guntik sucks and hates film, so there was no chance of him watching it. But now he just may this time, because he has this thing where he has to know that it's good, or has to know that there's a reason to watch it if it's bad, then he'll watch it. Kind of sucks. A little alien, if you ask me. But anyway, hashtag Al hates Wonka before even watching it. But anyway, I'm here to talk about Wonka. And as you could probably guess, I fucking love this movie, man. It's great. Paul King did it, baby. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say it, man. This is the best Wonka-related movie. Now, of course, the other two take on the book. So if that's what you're looking for, like a version of the book, of course, it's not it, because it's more like a story that takes place before the events of the book. There is a question of, like, does this fit into any continuity? Yes and no. King called this kind of like a companion piece. After having watched it, I know exactly what it means. Like, this movie can fit as a prequel to either of the two movies. You just have to obviously overlook the fact that other people play the character. But it leaves you in a place where you, like, the bridge of time between the two movies, you could surmise what happened to the character and in his life. So that's cool. If they never make any more to this particular Timothy Chalamet version of him, this can serve as either a standalone film or as a prequel to either two of the movies, if you so desire, bending a few little edges and corners of the existing stories in those films. But so that's really cool. Now, big question, is this a musical? This is probably the most musical forward one of the Wonka films. And, it's great, man. If you don't have the right music for a musical, you're dead in the water, Sometimes it only even takes a couple of songs, maybe even one, to derail your entire fucking musical. Sometimes you make dog shit like Cats and people pretend to like it. But this is not a case of either of those situations. The music is strong, it's out the gate, it's non-intrusive to the viewing experience. People that are not familiar with musicals can get into it right away. You know, the numbers are not ridiculous. In fact, they're kind of like self-aware, or at least they let you know that they're very self-aware. And yeah, so any concerns to any people that are not particularly fond of musicals, this is very consumable by a normal audience. So that's great. But the big question, baby, the big question is Timothy Chalamet. He has some big freaking shoes to fill. And I don't mean Johnny Depp. Hey, look, man, everybody loved Johnny Depp at the time when Charlie came out. But they were like, that's a guy afterwards, right? You just can't. That Gene Wilder performance is too much to beat. And kudos to Depp for trying something completely different because, you know, I venture to say that he knew that there was no way he was ever going to beat the Gene Wilder performance. So he did something completely left field, but it admittedly kind of stunk. So respect for trying, but your performance was a hell of crap. So Gene Wilder, big shadow, man. That character has kind of been just pounded into our memories. You know, it's such a cultural milestone. What's great about the character is there's like this edge, this sinister edge to him, you know? But it's because of where the character is in his life, because of the events that happened that led him to become a recluse. That's where this edge comes from. This version of Wonka has a sweet naivete to him. He's passionate. He's living for a dream. And much like we get to know about Wilder's character as the movie concludes in that original take on Wonka, he's actually a very sweet man. So we see the version before the kind of like cynical, you know, kind of paranoid version of Wilder's character. So again, that's one of the ways that this movie works as a prequel, even though it's not, you know, directly tied into that continuity. So yeah, this Wonka is a dreamer. I'm gonna be straight up. He's magical out the gate. You know, the moment Chalamet started in on his lines, or I should say his lyrics, I can't explain it. I was sold. Like the guy immediately communicated what his Wonka was like, and he was consistent throughout. He's lovely as fucking Wonka. He's magical. He's very, very affable. I can't say enough about it. I'm kind of shocked, you know, for my very limited experience with Timothy Chalamet. I gotta say that he makes quite the impression here as Wonka. He definitely carves out a Wonka that feels both like it could naturally have become the Wonka we're familiar with, but is completely fresh because of where he is in life. And there's also this really nice, very heartfelt anchor to the drive of his character that pays off in spades at the end of the movie, in a very moving way. So, I mean, he's great, man. He's just great. He looks great. He has that kind of whimsy to him. He's an alluring character. He has an optimism about him that is magnetic. So he does come off as extremely magical, which of course is very apropos the character. How does this world of Wonka work? You know, if we go by either of the versions, more so the Gene Wilder version, they feel kind of anachronistic. They feel like they're in a version of our reality that exists at all times and yet didn't exist at all. There's a magical fantasy element to the way the worlds of the previous Wonka incarnations have been presented. Paul King has an uncanny ability to create worlds that feel like a storybook worlds, yet rooted in some form of reality. So he was primed out the fucking gate to create the world of Wonka. Does it work? Oh man, it works in spades, you know? If you're familiar with the Paddington movies, you know, there's like a kind of like a less alienating version of Wes Anderson quirk and charm to them, you know? Wes Anderson is very, you know, artsy and very niche, but Paul King is like the bridge between the common viewer and that like kind of extreme quirk. And he brings that here, crafting not only a great Wonka, alongside Timothy Chalamet, but a cast of characters that is just, again, if you've seen the Paddington movies, they're all likable, even when they're the bad guys or whatever. There's a lot of charm to them, a lot of humor to them, and they're just a delight to see. Great cast of actors in this, supporting Chalamet's character, and I mean, what can you say? He captures that particular vibe, man. That we're in some moment in time, but it's not exactly a moment in time that you can pinpoint. Like in Wilder's, especially in Wilder's version. I say as if he directed the movie, but you know what I mean. It literally is Wilder's version, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, because he's the spearhead to that. He's why we remember it so well. But in that version, it feels like it's taking place in old England, and yet there's modern. Again, that anachronistic kind of like fantasy fusion of these times. We get that here, not so much in the sense that we're seeing modern technology. There's hints of that actually, if you see it, but it doesn't feel like it's ensconced in a particular time, yet it still feels old and new at the same time. So that's awesome that he could capture that. The effects are wonderful. There's not cloying CGI. Of course, there is use of CGI, but you know what I'm talking about. CGI has become so cheap and lame that it can kind of like rob movies of their integrity. And this entire movie just looks and plays so great on a visual level that it whisks you away into this world, just flawlessly. There was not a moment where I was jarred out of it or anything like that. I did not expect to like this movie as much, even though I love Paul King's work. I didn't expect to like it this much because, again, the shadow, the stranglehold that Gene Wilder's portrayal held on the character is so strong. And that's kind of what's great about it. They achieve what Tim Burton and Depp couldn't achieve, which is to honor the character and yet present something completely new that still can tie into that version of the character. They achieved that here. You feel that this guy will eventually become the Wonka that is, in that movie because of the events that happen in between that we are made to know in the Gene Wilder movie. However, I do hope and pray that there are other movies in this version of Wonka, because the logical next step would be to bring you to the story proper of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And given the foundation that they lay here, there would be a lot of thematic parallels that would fit wonderfully into that. And Paul King is the man to expand upon that. Now, I'm not going to lie, I shed a few tears. I had a big, stupid smile on my face. Like 11 minutes in, I know because I brought up the timer. I was like, should I not? I was like, I'm going to go wake up Guntik and bring him to see this. But he's a fucking Grinch. So I was like, nah, I'm just going to see it, just in case something goes horribly awry. But nothing goes horribly awry, man. Everything goes right in this movie. I love it. I love it, man. I hold the Gene Wilder version at a very high standard, like a lot of us do in, us movie lovers. I was going to say American culture, but really it's a worldwide thing. But, I mean, yeah, man. Obviously, this is taking nothing away from Gene Wilder. That's why it works so well. It doesn't pretend that it's going to do that. It doesn't try to reach and outshine that. But in doing so, it eases itself in, and what's great about it is that the performance and the script and everything immediately ingratiates the audience to Wonka, man. There's not a moment where you don't cheer for the guy, where he doesn't come off as extremely lovable, as someone that you want to see succeed. I don't know, man. He's just supremely likable. So, yes, this is not this darker edged version that Wilder played, so it doesn't feel like a violation of that. In fact, it feels like we can eventually get to that because here we're seeing something before. So, without being an exact, like an official prequel, it earns that place without ever stepping on any shoes. End of the day, I gotta be honest with myself. I love this movie like straight out the gate, man. So I'm gonna put it right up there. You know, if I give the original a solid 10, nostalgia or not, this Wonka iteration, it gets a 10, baby. It gets a fucking 10. It is fucking great. Like I said, I went in with a lot of expectations, you know, and I'm not one to be disappointed by expectations. It's very rare that that happens nowadays, especially. But this one was loaded, man. It carries a lot of history, the brand, if you will, and of course Paul King himself. You know, he made these movies that I hold dear to my heart, and I mean, how do you knock 3 out of the ballpark? This is how. You know what I'm saying? So Wonka. Is it great? Fuck yeah, watch that shit. It's amazing. Don't go in Al style. No hate to my boy Al, but he goes in wanting to fight the movie and hating it out the gate. Don't do that, man. Don't do that, because, I mean, you're just fucking yourself over at that point. You gotta be a cynical piece of shit not to like this movie. I'll just put it that way. If you don't like this movie, you're probably not fun to hang around with. I'll just say that. But anyway, Wonka, highly recommend it. Love it. If you love Roald Dahl's stories, if you love the world of Wonka, the idea of Wonka, all that stuff, this is fantastic. Check it out. Maybe old Goontick will let you know what he thinks about it when I let him see it, now that he can be sure that it's good. So anyway, I'm out.